But if I look like, or if we were to look at that column in the middle, the self, I am 1000% sure that there is not just one single thing written there. There might be a question mark because, well, the character doesn't know who they are yet, or something along the lines of like unknown or undefined. But there's not just one thing. And the reason why it's impossible that there is just one thing is because your character is a lot of different things. Even if we ask ourselves, like, okay, who are we? Or if you ask someone else, there are so many ways that they can respond. And it's the same for our characters. They will say something along the lines of, well, writer, I am a lot of different things, and here is why. Social identity theory states that like people are divided into groups based on their physical, their social, and their mental characteristics. Now, these groups they can be super obvious and clear, or on the contrary, they can not be clear at all. Sometimes people will claim to be a part of this group, or like of these different groups, and at other times, it's society who tells these individuals, you are a part of this. And then where I love that, like, this is where stories are born, at least in my mind, is that individuals are either going to align and they're going to accept the different aspects of their identities, or if we're lucky, they're going to reject it. And when they reject these identities, ultimately, we will find conflict, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Okay. All right. Now, why will we find conflict if they reject anything about their identities? Well, because individuals long to belong. There are two concepts in social identity where the first one is collectivism. We want to be a part of something that is bigger than us because that is simply human nature. But then at the same time, we want to hold on to what makes us individuals. And that's the flip side of individualism. And when these two things come into like, when they start wrestling with each other, we find story. Okay, so far your character has thought about, okay, their concepts of self. Then we've shared with them what other people would perceive of them just by looking at them. And they might be scratching their head and they might be asking you as the writer, okay, why are we doing this? This doesn't feel too comfortable. Tell them to hold on just a little bit more, okay? All right, we're going to invite our characters. I want you to allow them to embrace a very short-lived identity crisis. If I lived one for about 20 years, your character can live one for the rest of this prickle, okay? We have about 30 minutes to go, okay? But what exactly is an identity crisis? This is what it is. In essence, an identity crisis is just like a general feeling or sensation of unhappiness or confusion because we're not sure what type of person we are, or most importantly, why. Why are we this type of person? And when we don't know who we are or why we are the way we are, ultimately, this can lead to like an uneasy feeling of, I'm not sure what my true purpose in life is. And we want our characters to get there. Okay, so if we remember, our character said, well, I'm a lot of different things. Now we're going to sit our characters down and we'll tell them, all right, here is how your identity comes to be. Social identity says that it's not that they happen in life stages, although they can. It's not that one is more important than the other, but it's sort of like layers. There are three core layers or prominent layers to how our identities form. At the outermost layer, we have our given identity. These are the things over which we have not a single choice. We can't control any of this. These are the traits that we received at birth, like, for example, our name. Or what if a character didn't receive a name? Why would that be? How about their place of birth? What does someone's place of birth say about who they will become? Their nationality, for instance, or race or ethnicity or sex. What about their genetic makeup? There is so much that is already defined for us simply by our DNA, and we can't control any of it. And what's more, I think it's fascinating to think that our DNA says one thing, so like our genotypes are saying one thing, but then they are expressing differently physically, and we can't control any of that. And what if society says that there is a contradiction there? What about our date of birth? It's not the same thing to say that I was born in 1986 than to say that I was born in the year 1886, for instance. And lastly, here within your given identity, what about family dynamics? What about the whole relationship? Like, family is one of the basic institutions of society. So many things can go wrong, or not wrong, but just it is what it is. But that form is a character. At the center, we have a character's chosen identity, and opposite to their given identity, this is where they have agency. Here is where they can choose and control who they believe they want to become. And these are things like their career or occupation, their religion, which could differ from their given identity. Like they were brought up into a family with said religious beliefs, and then they choose something different later on in life. Or perhaps their hobbies, their political affiliation, and even their relationship status. And then at the heart of this individual, at the core of any person, you have their unique qualities. This is things like, these are the things like their behaviors or their values and deep-seated beliefs that this is like the essence of who they are. Okay. Now, I'll give you guys, I guess, a minute and a half, because I really don't want you to like overthink it. So far, you have what people perceive of this character. You have how this character views themselves, like their self-concept. And now I want you to jot down a few notes on their invisible identity. These are the things that others wouldn't necessarily know about them, and that they don't even know about themselves because they haven't sat down until now to ponder.